Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to this week's Wisconsin Visitors edition of the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. The bye week is over, and it's time to get back to business with a struggling Wisconsin team paying a visit to the Big House for homecoming. Joining us today with his thoughts on what's happening in Madison is the radio play-by-play voice of Wisconsin football, Matt LePay. We'll also hear some of Sharon's thoughts from his Monday presser. First, let's get it going with my view from Section 17. Maybe the bye week came at a good time for both teams. We needed to get a boatload of guys healthy, and Wisconsin is pretty much in that same boat. 3 offensive linemen out, a starting quarterback that's fighting his way back from injury, and a lot of young players being asked to step up in Madison, including 3 redshirt freshmen on the offensive line, so it's been tough sledding. The heat seems to be on Luke Fickell in his 3rd year. Has he made some mistakes? Yes, he has. The first was installing an air raid offense in Season 1. Now, if that sounds like a 360 in Wisconsin culture, it was. He realized the mistake and brought in a new OC to reinstall a ground-based attack. That's the personnel he has, and those are the guys Wisconsin also recruits best, not air raid guys. So even though it's Luke's 3rd year in Madison, this is a brand new offense. On paper, it looks like the Badgers are not a good team. Their season might end up that way too, but stats and losses, especially early in the season, can be deceiving when predicting the future. They've lost to Alabama, and then at home 2 weeks ago to Maryland. In both games, they had more than their fair share of chances to make each game more competitive, but self-inflicted errors doomed them. They are a team that needs to play clean and just hang around in games and give themselves a chance. So does this look like an easy W for us? On paper, it does. Something tells me Wisconsin will come here to play, and if they are healthier and keep it close, they could make this interesting. At his Monday presser, Sharon shared an injury update for this week.
I feel really good about where we are. That was the number one goal this week, is to get guys healthy, get guys back. I feel like Gio's in a good place. I feel like Brady's in a good place. Hogan's in a good place. We'll see how he's doing as we go through the week, because it's all, I don't ever predict it, but I feel like we're trending in the right direction with all those guys, and the same with Jair.
He had good things to say about his senior center, Greg Crippen, too.
He's been through a bunch, He's a great example of what college football is really all about, and what staying the course is, and going, attacking the process. People always talk about that, but what does that really mean? He's been through, he's here as a true freshman, Andrew Vastardis, brought in Olu Timmy, brought in Drake Nugent, and a lot of guys would have chucked the deuces and left. He didn't. He stayed the course, became the starter last year, and played his best game last week. His best game. So credit to Greg, because a lot of kids in this day and age would not do that, and he's an example of what you want. So credit to him, credit to his parents for trusting it and trusting the process, but really proud of him and what he's done to this point.
Sharon talked about some of the freshmen who stood out in practice during the bye.
On offense, I'll start. I think the guy there's 2 guys really in the receiver room, Andrew Marsh, Jamar Browder, Those guys really stood out, made some plays. Jasper Parker's another guy. Obviously, he's got Jordan and Justice in front of him, but he made some plays as well in that time. And then on defense, it's a bevy of guys, because a lot of those guys have played, but like Elijah Dotson, he's played, he made some plays. The guy that stood out on defense probably the most is Nate Owusu, and he's back and he's feeling good. He was just in the backfield half the days. It was good to see him moving around and pushing around, and that just adds to that linebacker room, which I already think is the best one in the country.
Sharon shared his thoughts on the Wisconsin run defense we'll see on Saturday.
Yeah, they're number one in the country. They're stout, they're big and stout up front. They've got guys that have played play a lot of football, and they got hard edges. With they got a transfer from Louisville, number 22, who's really good pass rusher. They got another edge guy who we actually recruited, Sebastian Cheeks, number 15, transfer from UNC, who was a linebacker that now's on the edge. They got two guys in the middle that are about 6'4", 235, stout run guys, and the safeties and corners all hit. It's a typical Mike Tressel defense. Plays physical, plays downhill.
My guest today says with Wisconsin's schedule this year, it's going to be an uphill battle. A win on Saturday in the Big House would change the outlook, though. Joining us next is the radio play-by-play voice of Badgers football, Matt LePay. So stay with us. Joining us on our Visitors Edition this week to get us up to speed on the Badgers is Wisconsin radio play-by-play voice, Matt LePay. Good to have you back once again, Matt.
Good to be with you.
Well, Matt, the Badgers are 2-2 overall, 0-1 in Big Ten play. That's coming off a bye week just like Michigan. But a week ago Saturday, that was a tough loss at Camp Randall against Maryland, wasn't it?
Yeah, they didn't play well in any particular area of the game. I mean, you get a blocked field goal early in the game, a blocked punt, a bad interception, the first couple scoring drives from Maryland, and I use drives in air quotes. They were 4 yards and 28 yards. So Wisconsin has had they've had troubles in a lot of areas this season, and starting well is you start at the beginning, they don't start well. They've been outscored in the first half 51-17, I think, through the first four games, and they dug themselves a hole that they just couldn't get out of the other day against Maryland. So now I think we're all over here just interested to see how these guys bounce back from it. They talk about being equipped to handle the adversity that will face them. They've got a daunting schedule, to say the least. So now we're all going to see, what they're able to do about it moving forward.
Well, Matt, Danny O'Neill has been getting most of the snaps under center. Billy Edwards Jr. has seen limited action up to this point because of the injury. So will we see both of those guys on Saturday, or is Coach Fickell hoping to settle on just one moving forward?
Well, I mean, ideally you'd settle on one, but I don't know the status as we speak on a Monday morning of where Billy Edwards is. They tried to use him in the Maryland game. It was pretty clear that he just wasn't right. So his reps were very limited, and it was, they both repped a lot during the week, but it was a tough spot for Billy, and it was a tough spot for Danny O'Neill. I mean, you're always staying ready as the two, but you didn't get all the reps that you normally would if you knew that you were QB1. So long answer to really tell you, I don't know. And they probably won't announce much if they do, being good for them, but I would think they'd want to see how Billy's progressing during the week.
Well, Matt, Coach Fickell brought in Jeff Grimes as the new OC this year. He's a two-time Broyles Award finalist. His offensive philosophy is more the traditional offensive scheme we've seen at Wisconsin through the years. I mean, he wants to get this program back to that physicality and a pounding running game, doesn't he?
He does. The tough part about this, it's year 3 with Luke Fickell, but, offensively, it's year 1. They've made the pivot, first trying the air raid concept type of offense, and they really struggled to recruit to it and struggled with luck, keeping their quarterback healthy. And now they are trying to get back to being a more physical, run-oriented team, and then, work off of play action and take your shots, all of that. But, in fairness, when you don't have a healthy starting quarterback, and against Maryland, 3 redshirt freshmen started in the offensive line. I mean, therein lies a difference, I think, between the depth of a Wisconsin and the depth of a Michigan. We know the Wolverines have been, they were without their 2 starting guards. There's depth there where they're still able to really dominate, I thought, the line of scrimmage against Nebraska in Lincoln and be able to run the way Michigan was able to run in that ball game. And Wisconsin, just with 3 redshirt freshmen in the offensive line, that's a tough ask. Yeah. And I think all of the feeling is those guys are really good and will become really good players. But as a redshirt freshman on the offensive line, that's and the left tackle has been a right tackle throughout his college career. He's played over at the other side the last couple of games. So it's just they've been disjointed there largely because of injury, but they just haven't had the depth that they know they're going to need.
Well, Dylan Jones and Darian Dupree have been leading the way, rushing 154 yards and 144 overall, respectively. Danny O'Neal has added 145 yards with his legs, but tell us about that Badgers running game we'll see on Saturday and what's worked and what hasn't so far.
Well, to be honest, not a ton has worked. They've been able to get, through jet sweeps, end arounds. They've gotten the wide receivers. If it's Tretch Kekahuna, mostly Vinny Anthony, I think, has had one carry on an end around for a touchdown a few weeks ago. But the tough part is these running backs, and they're young. The top 2 guys are, but the feeling is, again, they're very talented. The problem is they've been getting hit, it seems like, way too often at the line of scrimmage or even behind it. So, yards after contact can be a little deceiving. It's how many yards do you go before there's contact? And I think these guys, they're getting hit way too early right now. And again, some of that comes back to just the disjointed nature of where the offensive line is, at least right now. But I think if a guy like Dylan Jones and Darian Dupree, you give them space and they can do some damage. Same for Cade Yakimelli, who's a redshirt junior. He didn't get a ton of turns last year, but when he did, he averaged better than 8 yards a carry. Big, strong guy. So there's talent back there, but unfortunately, we just haven't seen it put on display, at least so far. The hope is Wisconsin has always prided itself on being a developmental program, and as the season moves on, the offensive line can start to gel, and these guys can get some creases with which to do some damage. The challenging part is the schedule that faces Wisconsin, with obviously Michigan this week, Iowa, Ohio State, go to Oregon. That's just October. So you still got you got Washington, you got Illinois, you got Minnesota. It's a pretty tough road ahead for these guys, but they knew what they signed up for.
As we've been discussing, getting the running game going this year is paramount, but you still need to have that effective passing game. Also tough when you've been going back and forth with quarterbacks. But the Badgers are averaging, I think, just over 200 yards passing a game. Talk about that receiver room and who we'll see on Saturday that's impressed you for the Badgers so far.
Well, I think it's a decent receiving group. I've used the term sneaky good because it doesn't get a lot of play. Now, is it as good as some of the top receiving rooms in the league or in the country? No, I mean, we haven't seen that yet. But Vinny Anthony, he's a senior out of Louisville. He's been a Wisconsin Badger all along. He's a really good player, and I think he's someone with a pro future ahead of him. Chris Brooks, really well put together, redshirt junior out of St. Louis. Very, very little in the way of statistics in terms of receptions in his career, but he'll do a lot of the dirty work, and he's also fought injury, and he's worked himself into the starting lineup. Tretch Kekahuna is someone who he's not big, but if you like to get him the ball in space because he has good speed. He's got a little make you miss to him, and he's the guy that on jet sweeps and such they'll use him for that. And another player who's transferred from Ohio State, Jaden Ballard. He's again someone who I think has the ability to stretch defenses. He wasn't going to get a ton of turns. He didn't at Ohio State with that, all the receivers there through the years with the Mecca Ibuka and Marvin Harrison and obviously Smith now. But I think at a school like Wisconsin, you're going to get more opportunities. So it's tough when you're to really get a consistent passing game when you're facing 3rd and 8 a lot, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. I mean, the best ingredient for particularly Wisconsin, I mean, you could say this about any number of programs, you want to be able to run it and then pass off of that. I mean, some schools maybe you don't have to do it that way, but I think at Wisconsin, it's optimal if you can. And to the quarterback, too, with Danny O'Neal, what he might not have in arm strength, he makes up for in toughness. He really is. He's a tough dude. Now, he's been given defenses 1 or 2 opportunities every game to go get picks, and they've taken advantage of that. But he's taken a lot of shots, and he keeps getting back up, and he'll run it. He's a decent threat running the ball, not maybe a Bryce Underwood type of threat, but he's a good enough threat to be able to move the sticks. And he does have experience. He started at San Diego State last year. So the quarterback position group comes into the season with more experience than what Wisconsin has seen for quite a while.
Well, Matt, over on the defensive side, Coach Mike Tressel's guys have been very good against the run, decent against the pass. I mean, overall, I only got to see the Maryland game, but if you look at just the numbers alone, the defense has been more than good enough, hasn't it? Yeah,
it's been good against the run. The qualifier is they haven't faced a good running team, which obviously they will. This Saturday, a good to great running team in Michigan. Like Alabama has not been a really good rushing team so far this season, but Ty Simpson went off and he's got big time receivers and they were really able to pick Wisconsin apart. And Maryland is not a particularly good running team, but their freshman quarterback he's really gifted. Malik Washington, a good solid group of receivers. So they didn't have to run it a ton, particularly these last couple of games. But one of the areas where Wisconsin really wanted to improve upon was that defensive front, get more size, get more depth. And it looks as though that they've been able to do that. Now, this will be a test unlike any they have seen so far this season, but they have been good against the run, vulnerable against the pass. I think the linebackers are really good. Christian Allegro, he's a junior out of Connecticut. He's been really good. Tackett Curtis has been solid. But it's one of those like, okay, you're stopping the run, but now can you defend the pass? And another area they've wanted to get more pressure on the quarterback. And that's a work in progress. I think it's better if you just look at statistics from a year ago. But in the last couple of games against Alabama and Maryland, they just haven't been able to get the quarterback off schedule. So that's the next step, I think, in the progression of the Wisconsin defense.
Well, Matt, I watched the Maryland game in full, and I have to say I can't recall hearing boos from the home crowd like we heard during that game at Camp Randall. I mean, Coach Fickell's in his 3rd year as head coach now. His contract, I believe, was extended by another year in the offseason. So is it too early in his tenure to say this is a hot seat year?
Yeah, I think with the extension thing, that's a standard procedure at Wisconsin. They just roll it over for another year, and it's the whole hot seat stuff. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, the buyout is a lot, and I think in fairness to Luke, I mean, the quarterback injury thing is real. Mm-hmm. The injury bug in the offensive line is real. But, the fans are frustrated, and I understand that, too, because there were a lot of bells and whistles with his hiring and the staff and what they were going to try to do, and they haven't seen that progress yet, they meaning the fans, and I think, maybe now more than ever, it's not a new thing, but I would say maybe now more than ever in sports, patience is something that's not exactly in abundance, and you want to see some progress, and they're not seeing it. But Again, in regards to Luke, he's a really good coach. I don't think he took pills to be a bad coach when he arrived in Madison. And you have to look at the big picture here. Now, have they made mistakes? Yes, without a doubt. The offensive philosophy didn't work. They couldn't recruit to it. That sets you back. Defensively, they haven't been quite as good. They haven't been bad, but they haven't been as good as was the case when Jim Leonard was the defensive coordinator, or Justin Wilcox, Dave Aranda before. But they also, I think it is fair to say, I don't have the exact numbers to present to you, but I think it is fair to say that Wisconsin has not been well positioned in NIL. It just hasn't. And there are probably multiple reasons for that. If it's the execution in trying to get third-party help, and this is a fan base that's a little bit more reluctant to do that. And I think particularly this year with the front loading that you could do legally, but the front loading before July 1 in the clearinghouse, there were schools, including where Wisconsin's heading this weekend, where some players were able to get out ahead of that, which is perfectly fair and perfectly legal. And I think in that regard, Wisconsin is well behind. So that just makes a tough job tougher, and the margin for error that much smaller, and mistakes get magnified, evaluations where guys don't quite pan out. Everybody has misses, but I think at a school like Wisconsin, those misses can stand out a little bit more.
Well, looking ahead to this Saturday then, Matt, it seems to me as if most Michigan, Wisconsin games, most in the last few decades have been, really physical, close games. And I'm going back to the 70s when I was young, watching Coach McClain when he came into Madison and started to turn things around. So, they've been really tough games, give and take. There have been a few blowouts. But when you look at Saturday, Wisconsin as they are now, and Michigan, because we have a lot of question marks at Michigan too, what do you think Wisconsin has to do to hang around in this game and give themselves a chance?
Well, that's the key, what you just said at the end, give themselves a chance. And I don't think they've done that in the last two ball games. If you lose to a team because they have better players, then okay, you don't like it, but all right, you can sort of live with that. But in the Alabama game, Wisconsin, makes mistakes. They get a first down wiped out because of an offensive pass interference call, which was the right call. They get a fourth down stop against Alabama near midfield, actually on the Alabama side of the 50, and then the Badgers come out and throw a pick right after that. So when it looks like they can get off to a good start, there are self-inflicted things that set these guys back. And it's the same thing in the Maryland game with the special teams breakdowns, a really bad interception that gift-wrapped the first touchdown for Maryland. So I think if you're Wisconsin, the first thing, as boring as it sounds, you just have to be sound. Don't commit the penalties that end drives or commit penalties that extend drives for the other team's offense. Don't give them easy picks. Don't turn it over. And try to make this game as competitive as you can for as long as you can. That's step number one. And then if in the end Michigan just has more talent and Michigan plays well and wins, you don't like it, but okay, at least there's a little bit of progress there. It's been really interesting too, Mike, from our perspective, because Wisconsin in the COVID year, its second game, it went into Ann Arbor, with cardboard cutouts and few living creatures in the stadium outside of the participants. Wisconsin won big. Michigan turned it over early, and it was almost like that was the rock bottom for Michigan and the peak for Wisconsin, because after that, everything changed for the Badgers. They stumbled through the rest of the season, ended up going to the Mayo Bowl and beat Wake Forest, and they ended up 4-3 in the shortened season. And obviously Michigan couldn't play in some of the games later in the year. And then the next year, Michigan comes into Camp Randall and romps Wisconsin. Everything turned for Michigan. It went from is Harbaugh on the hot seat, blah, 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 to all of a sudden Michigan getting it flipped. And then a couple of years later, winning the national championship. And now they're the school that's given Ohio State the migraine headaches when it was the other way around. So I feel like with the Badgers, we've had a pretty good view of obviously where Wisconsin peaked and then dropped, but we also had a good view of where Michigan was at its low point and then was a victim for Michigan's climb back to greatness. So it's been it hasn't been overly pleasant from the Wisconsin side, but it has been interesting to watch.
Well, final question before we let you get away, Matt. Win or lose this Saturday, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, the remaining schedule is a gauntlet. It's already been tough. From what you've seen thus far, and I know it's hard to calculate with injuries here and there, but does Wisconsin have the pieces to possibly turn this thing around and end up with a season that's going to satisfy the Badger faithful?
Yeah, that's the $64 million question. And then there's that question, what defines success, what defines progress?
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, as we speak right now, the Badgers will likely be underdogs in every game it has the rest of the year. Maybe Iowa, maybe Washington because they're home games, but I don't know otherwise. And the first thing would be to get as healthy as you can. I mean, it would be nice to see QB1 stay on the field. Luke Fickell has had buzzard's luck with that, going back 2 years ago with Tanner Mordecai missing time, Tyler Van Dyke's season-ending injury on the first possession of the third game last year. That's tough for most programs to overcome. Some can. Wisconsin is not one of them, at least has not shown to be one of them. So if they can get some continuity in the offensive line where the offense can help the defense a little bit more, then yeah, I would like to think that it's not overwhelmingly great talent, but I think there's enough there for a starting point, particularly with the younger players in the program. There are a lot of young guys, first, second-year players, that if they are able to retain those guys on the roster, and if they develop the way Wisconsin historically has been able to develop players, then I think there's something that they can have to grab onto and give yourself a little hope moving forward. But until you see it, this program's been kind of spinning in the last few years, and fans are just, they're dying to see something to give them hope here, not just the rest of this year, but in the future. And they haven't seen a whole lot of that, quite frankly.
Well, with us today on our visitors edition of the show has been Wisconsin Badgers radio play-by-play voice, Matt LePay. Matt, always a pleasure having you on the show. We thank you for taking time for us on a busy game week. Hope you enjoy the trip to Ann Arbor and that things turn around for that great fan base there in Madison. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate it. Always look forward to the big house. Been a minute since we've been over there, so looking forward to it this weekend.
On Quick Hits today, Sharon shared the injury news with us earlier, so we won't repeat what he said. On Thursday's Michigan Game Day, we will update any additional injury reports and the latest team news. Our guest on Thursday will be beat writer Tony Garcia from the Detroit Free Press. We'll have the usual game day notes and a look at the weather for Saturday's big noon kickoff. A reminder to tell your Wolverine family and friends about the show. Follow us on X. And please leave your comments or reviews wherever you get your podcasts. That does it for now. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until we meet again on Thursday, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!